Have you ever been right in the middle of a disagreement? Feelings are hurt, tensions are high, and suddenly the other person just totally shuts down? The whole room goes dead silent. You know exactly the scenario I'm talking about, right? Today we are diving into an explainer that uncovers exactly what is happening inside the mind of someone who defaults to silence during a conflict, what is actually going on behind that giant wall they put up. Let's jump right in and find out. So, picture this. You're having a minor disagreement. Maybe it started over something totally trivial, like, I don't know, whose turn it is to do the dishes or weekend plans. And then, without warning, the other person just completely checks out verbally, making us wonder why on earth words suddenly fail them. I mean, when we get hurt, human nature usually drives us to react. We want to yell or cry or immediately defend ourselves. So when someone just completely removes themselves from the conversation, it leaves us so confused and, honestly, deeply frustrated. We almost always assume that their silence means they just don't care, or worse, that they're giving us the silent treatment as some kind of punishment. But what's happening underneath that silence is actually way more complex than a simple refusal to speak. And here is where it gets really fascinating, because we aren't talking about someone who never speaks. Think about it. On any given Tuesday, this exact same person might literally be the funniest person in the room. They can be super sarcastic. They might even be purposefully a little annoying just to get a playful rise out of you. They definitely have a voice, and they absolutely know how to use it. But in moments of tension, total silence. And it's exactly this sharp contrast between their vibrant, everyday personality and this sudden, heavy muteness that makes this behavior so incredibly confusing for their friends, family, and partners. Well, psychology actually gives us a really precise name for the specific trigger. It's called emotional withdrawal. And the absolute key here is recognizing this as a coping mechanism. A coping mechanism is just a survival tool. It's a completely automated response designed to protect the brain from perceived danger. So that silence, it isn't a weapon forged to hurt you. It's actually a shield forged to protect them. The second something upsets or hurts them, their internal psychological alarm bells start ringing, and their defense system just pulls up the drawbridge and locks the gates. This idea right here brilliantly illustrates the massive contrast between what's happening on the outside versus the inside. Outwardly, you're facing a blank brick wall, complete silence. That is literally all you experience. But inwardly, oh man, it is a totally different universe. Their mind is definitely not empty. In fact, they are holding full, perfectly articulate conversations right there in their heads. They are explaining exactly how they feel. They know precisely why they're upset. Their internal clarity is 100% perfect. So the problem really isn't a lack of words. The problem is the broken bridge between their mind and their mouth. So clearly they don't lack things to say. Rather, their system has learned, and learned is the absolutely crucial word here, that staying quiet is just simply safer than risking being misunderstood. This isn't something they were born doing. Somewhere along the line, probably repeatedly, they tried to express their hurt and were met with misunderstanding, invalidation, or just way more conflict. And our brains, they're incredibly efficient risk assessment machines. Their brain literally ran the numbers and concluded, speaking up leads to pain, staying silent prevents additional pain. Therefore, silence equals safety. Psychologists refer to this specific dynamic as internalized emotional regulation. And honestly, this is the real aha moment of this explainer. The key to understanding this is the tragic trade-off it requires. They are handling their distress privately, sure, but it comes at the massive cost of deeper connection. Emotional regulation is basically just how we manage our feelings. Most healthy relationships require external regulation, right? We talk it out, we share the burden, we connect. But for someone dealing with this, the regulation is entirely internal. They process the pain completely alone. And while that might keep them feeling momentarily safe from being misunderstood, they end up sacrificing the exact vulnerability that makes relationships thrive. Instead of expressing their anger or frustration outwardly, they internalize all of those really intense feelings. And let's be clear, those emotions don't just magically evaporate because the person is quiet. No way. The anger is absolutely still there. The frustration is still there. The distress is very, very real. But instead of that energy moving outward into the room where you guys can address and resolve it, it moves inward. They swallow it. They just sit with it all alone. It's kind of like shaking up a bottle of soda and never taking off the cap. The pressure inside is building and building, but outwardly, the bottle looks completely still. Now, this kind of withdrawal doesn't just happen overnight. It's a domino effect that builds step by step. It starts as a reaction to feeling hurt or upset, which immediately triggers that deep fear of being misunderstood. And that fear completely overrides the desire to speak. So they internalize the distress, having those perfect conversations only in their head. And through sheer repetition, this becomes a totally hardwired habit. Over time, they don't even consciously decide to go silent anymore. The second the trigger happens, their system automatically shuts down the vocal cords. It literally becomes their default setting. Because of this deeply ingrained habit, society frequently mislabels these individuals. You know how it is? We love to slap labels on things. We call them shy, or distant, or extremely introverted. But beneath those convenient labels, they are in active self-protection mode. They are heavily burdened with a ton of internalized emotion. When we just write them off as shy and move on, we are entirely missing the profound emotional work they are doing right beneath the surface just to keep themselves feeling safe in a highly stressful moment. And here is the real tragedy of this internalized regulation. Even though they know exactly how they feel and they're having perfect, clear conversations in their heads, when the moment actually arrives to open their mouths and advocate for themselves, the words literally do not come out. The habit of silence is just so strong, and that biological drive to protect themselves is so overwhelming that they find themselves physically unable to bridge the gap. So, feeling totally defeated, they just stay quiet instead. This is so important to remember. This silence is not a weapon to push you away. It is actually a hidden plea. Our natural reaction when someone shuts us out is to walk away, give them space, or just get really angry. But walking away, that actually confirms their absolute deepest fear, that they are misunderstood and totally alone in their distress. What they actually need is someone who recognizes that invisible protective shield and says, "Hey, I see that you can't speak right now, but I'm not going anywhere." As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. When you encounter this kind of protective silence in your own relationships, how are you going to choose to respond? We've seen today that emotional withdrawal is a deeply ingrained habit built entirely around self-protection. Yes, it costs them deeper connection, but right now it's the only way their system knows how to feel safe. So the next time the room goes dead silent and the words get stuck in their throat, will you let the silence push you away? Or will you be the person who finally breaks their cycle by choosing to stay close? Think about that as you navigate your relationships this week. Keep seeking to understand the hidden worlds of the people around you, and I will catch you in the next explainer.